In 2022, Forbes called Diddy a billionaire. 3 years later, he's selling his houses from a prison cell. This is the exact timeline of how $1 billion fell apart month by month.
That's why you eat your Wheaties. Racket, folks, racket.
Start with the number, because it's the highest this man ever reached. In 2022, Forbes named Sean Combs a billionaire, estimating his net worth at roughly $1 billion. And treat that as Forbes' estimate, because even that figure was disputed. But it's the peak on the official record. That's receipt 1. Here's receipt 2. By the middle of 2024, just 2 years later, Forbes had slashed that same estimate to around $400 million. Not a slow fade. More than half the fortune gone in 24 months. And receipt 3, the one that tells you how far this fall actually goes. In 2026, Sean Combs sold one of his mansions for $55 million, and he closed that sale from inside a federal prison cell. So line up the 3 points on the timeline. 2022, a billionaire, on top of the music industry. 2024, cut to $400 million. 2026, liquidating real estate from prison. That is one of the fastest falls from the top of the wealth ladder in modern entertainment history. $1 billion estimate to a man selling his houses from a cell in the space of 4 years. And unlike most financial collapses, this one didn't happen all at once in a crash. It happened in a sequence, a specific chain of events, each one knocking loose the next, that you can actually walk through month by month. So let's do exactly that. Because it all started with a single lawsuit filed in one November that Diddy tried to make disappear in a single day.
Just manifested into love.
Sean Combs, aka Diddy, has become the latest hip-hop billionaire after Kanye West lost his billionaire rating due to the loss of $2 billion in a day and dropped to an estimated net worth of $500 million.
Rewind to where the timeline actually breaks. Through 2023, Sean Combs was still on paper a billionaire, the estimate intact, the empire humming, the brands on shelves in every country. And then, on November 16th, 2023, a single lawsuit landed that started the whole chain reaction. Cassie, his former partner of over a decade, filed a civil suit under a New York law that briefly opened the door for older claims. That's all the detail the allegations get here. This video is about the money. Because what Diddy did next is the tell. He didn't fight it. He didn't drag it through years of motions the way his team has fought every case since. He settled it in 24 hours, reportedly for around $20 million. One day, one check. Now, at the time, that looked like a man making a problem disappear. In hindsight, it was the first domino, because a settlement that fast, that large, signaled to the entire world that there was something here worth $20 million to bury overnight. And the world noticed. The filings started, the headlines started. But a lawsuit is just paper. What came 4 months later was men with badges. Because in March 2024, Homeland Security agents raided his homes in Los Angeles and Miami. Federal agents walking through the front doors of the mogul's mansions, on camera, broadcast around the planet. That was the moment the story stopped being a celebrity lawsuit and became a federal investigation. And you cannot put a price on what that image did to a man whose entire fortune was built on his name being a brand. But here's the thing about the raids. They weren't the disaster. They were the trigger. Because within weeks, the people who actually held the keys to his billion-dollar fortune started walking away. And that's when the real money began to vanish.
And we have some breaking news. Homeland Security says it has raided 2 homes belonging to rapper Sean Diddy Combs. Those homes are in Los Angeles and Miami. Sources tell the Associated Press it's an incident connection to a sex trafficking investigation.
Stop, because here's what almost nobody understood while they were watching the raids play out on the news. The raids didn't take Diddy's money. His own business partners did, legally, quietly, and far more permanently than any federal agent could. Because the billion-dollar estimate Forbes gave him in 2022 was never really about Sean Combs the rapper. It was about Sean Combs the brand, and specifically the alcohol empire. The bulk of that fortune came from his partnership with the drinks giant Diageo, Cîroc vodka, and DeLeón tequila. And in January 2024, right in the middle of the collapsing timeline, that partnership ended. Diageo settled with Combs, took 100% ownership of both Cîroc and DeLeón, and cut him out completely. He reportedly received around $200 million for his half of DeLeón. But here's what that number hides. The engine was gone. Cîroc, the brand that reportedly paid him close to $1 billion over the life of the deal, was a partnership he didn't even own outright. And now it was simply gone, reverted entirely to Diageo, the single biggest source of the billion-dollar fortune, switched off. Then June 2024, Revolt, the media company he founded, announced his shares had been fully redeemed and retired. He was out of his own network, which became employee-owned. And Sean John, the fashion line, already sold and faded from stores. Look at what happened in the space of a few months in 2024. The vodka, the tequila, the media company, the fashion line. Every pillar that Forbes had counted toward that $1 billion, gone or cashed out, one after another. This is the exact stretch where the estimate fell off a cliff, from $1 billion in 2022 to around $400 million by the middle of 2024, cut by more than half, and almost none of it from a courtroom. It was the business exits that did it. And the staggering part? He still hadn't even stood trial yet. The worst was still coming.
Right, if you just type in Diageo market cap, $81 billion. He said they owe him $2 billion. And he said it could be the fact that they are doing this to not have to pay him $2 billion.
Because in 2025, the case that started with Cassie's lawsuit reached a federal courtroom, and this is where a shrinking fortune turned into a prison sentence. After an 8-week trial, the jury delivered a split verdict. They acquitted Sean Combs of the most serious federal charges, the racketeering and trafficking counts that could have meant life in prison. That's real, and it matters. On the charges that carried a life sentence, he won. But he was convicted on 2 counts under the Mann Act, the federal violations, and in October 2025, the judge sentenced him to 50 months in federal prison, plus a $500,000 fine. So now add it to the timeline. 2022, billionaire. 2024, cut to $400 million as the brands walked. 2025, convicted, sentenced, and sent to a federal facility. The man who was on top of the wealth ladder 3 years earlier was now an inmate with a release date, currently projected around 2028, though that number keeps shifting, so don't hold me to a specific month. And here's the question I want you to sit with, because reasonable people genuinely split on it. Everything you've just watched, the 24-hour settlement, the $200 million brand exit, the assets starting to move. Did that happen because a fortune was collapsing under legal weight? Or does it look like a man methodically converting an empire into cash right as the storm rolled in? I'm not going to tell you the answer. Nobody outside his inner circle actually knows. And I won't pretend I do. So I'm asking you, collapse or cash out? Drop it in the comments. And this is exactly why this channel exists. I track every dollar and every filing in this saga, every asset, every ruling, so the day the next piece moves, you'll know what it means. Subscribe so you're here when it happens. Because the final chapter of this timeline is the strangest one of all, the part where a man in a prison cell was still moving $55 million.
Sean Diddy Combs back in a Manhattan courtroom for sentencing today.
Yeah, that's right. Over the summer, a jury convicted the hip-hop mogul of transporting women for prostitution after a 2-month trial with graphic and emotional testimony from former girlfriends.
Which brings the timeline to now. In July 2026, property records surfaced showing that one of Diddy's waterfront Star Island mansions in Miami had sold for $55 million, a home his company had bought for $35 million in 2021, a $20 million gain. And it closed while he was sitting in a federal prison cell. Read that again, because it's the whole story in one image. A man behind bars, and his real estate machine is not just running, it's turning a profit. That's not a frozen fortune. That's an operation still in motion. And it answers the question this entire timeline has been building toward, why the $1 billion is gone, when the man is very much still worth hundreds of millions. Because it was never a crash. A crash is sudden, chaotic, total. This was a sequence, a controlled, step-by-step conversion spread across 4 years. Watch the whole chain in one breath. The Cassie settlement paid out around $20 million. The Diageo exit converted the brands into a reported $200 million in cash. Revolt was bought back and retired. The mansion started selling. $35 million turned into 55. Piece by piece, an empire you could point to. A vodka brand, a tequila, a network, houses on 2 coasts became proceeds, settlements, and cash you can't. That's where the billion went, not up in smoke. Converted, sold, settled, and some of it spent because running the most expensive legal defense in modern hip-hop, reportedly $7 to $8 million, and still climbing on appeal, burns through a fortune faster than almost anything. The billion didn't vanish. It got disassembled, one dated transaction at a time, and you just watched the calendar it happened on.
Sean Diddy Combs is making headlines again, but this time it's not because of music or another court appearance. His luxury waterfront mansion on Miami's exclusive Star Island has officially been sold for an incredible $55 million.
So here's the whole arc, in the time it takes to say it. In 2022, Forbes called Sean Combs a billionaire, the second richest man in hip-hop, an empire spanning vodka, tequila, fashion, media, and real estate on both coasts. 4 years later, he is an inmate in a federal prison, selling his houses one at a time to a fortune that now sits, by Forbes' estimate, around $400 million, and still falling. That is the timeline. Not a scandal that exploded overnight, but a chain of dominoes, a lawsuit in November, a raid in March, the brands walking through 2024, a conviction in 2025, and mansions selling from a cell in 2026, each one knocking loose the next. What makes it remarkable isn't just how far he fell. It's how orderly the fall was. How much of that billion didn't burn but converted quietly into forms almost nobody can trace anymore. Whether that was a fortune collapsing or a fortune being repositioned, you've now seen the calendar and you can decide for yourself. When the next piece moves, the LA mansion, a settlement, an asset named in a filing, you'll hear it here first, and we'll see who in the comments called it. And if you want the deeper forensic breakdown, not the timeline, but exactly where $600 million of that empire physically went, brand by brand, that's the video linked right here. It's the companion to this one. Watch it next. I'll see you there.